Hi, I'm Mac with P&P Engineering, and today we're going to show you how to install our all-aluminum roof rack on the second gen 2005 Plus Nissan Frontier. In this version, we're going to show you how to use our bracket system for the Frontier that did not come with a factory roof rack. This will be a drill your roof process. Alternatively, if you so chose, you could simply mark the holes and install a riv nut instead of dropping your headliner. Dropping the headliner is kind of an involved process. It is the first step in this installation. It's not terribly challenging as long as you take your time, wash your hands, wear gloves, keep your fingerprints down off of the light colored headliner and all the light colored plastics. But it would be an option if you wanted to just install riv nuts instead of dropping the headliner. You could substitute our interior brackets for some riv nuts. There are a couple of good videos on the web already of the headliner coming down. Obviously in our truck today we've already got it uninstalled, so we'll link to a video down below that you can follow along with just to drop the headliner, and then come back for the rest of the roof rack install. To install this roof rack, you're going to get your 7 crossbars, 2 side rails, and then you'll get front and rear brackets and front and rear interior backing brackets that you'll use to sandwich the roof in our installation. You will need a 1/2 inch wrench and socket. You'll need a 7/16 socket or wrench, and you'll need a 4mm Allen key for our installation. You'll also need a good tube of silicone to seal your roof back up. That's a very important step to keep water from coming in. We'll go through and show you just how we do it, which is to apply very liberally the silicone, keep that thing sealed nice and tight. So after you've dropped your headliner, our first step for the bare roof, no OEM roof rack, is going to be lightly assemble the roof rack. Use your 2 side panels and a couple of your crossbars, front, middle, rear. Put that together as an assembly, and you're going to put it on your roof, and then we're going to measure up for center so that we can visually install this thing correctly, left to right, front to back. So let's go ahead and make a light assembly and get that dropped on the roof here. Okay, so now that we have loosely assembled our side rails, aluminum extrusions, and our mounting brackets, set the whole assembly on top of the roof, and we'll start measuring for center. First, we want to measure for center on our crossbars, which should be 46.5 inches wide. Mark our centers, front, middle, and rear. And after that, we can start measuring the roof, marking the center on our roof. We've already gone ahead and done that ahead of time, marked our roof, and so we just need to square up our rack marks to our roof marks, and then we'll kind of step back, visually inspect. Once we have the rack where we want it, both left to right, front to back, and within square, we'll go ahead and mark our slots in our brackets to the roof, and that'll tell us where to drill our holes to mount the rest of the rack. So the brackets for trucks with no OEM roof rack are going to be slightly different than trucks that came with an OEM roof rack. We're not going to try to put our holes in the same spots because the locations, the bolt hole locations, would be very difficult in some spots to get a through bolt into, where there's a weld nut on a plate installed from the factory, but that plate is actually tucked up and under some of the roof structure and you couldn't get a nut and a wrench on the back side of your bolt. So we've moved all of our bolt hole locations to places that are easily enough accessible with the headliner down to be able to get a socket on the top and a wrench on the bottom, independent of all of the interior structure crossbars of the roof. Now that we have marked all our holes, I'm just going to go through center punch where we're going to drill, and then we'll drill our holes. We're going to have an additional hole up front that will be access holes for lights in the future. If you're going to run lights on the roof, light bar, any kind of scene lighting, or any kind of electronics at all, now would be the time to go ahead and punch that hole while you've got your headliner down and while you're already drilling holes. You can silicone everything up all at one time. So now that we have all our holes drilled, we're going to go ahead and lay down a generous amount of silicone that'll go under our bracket. Want to make sure you go around all of the holes, get everything sealed up real well, and then do another, go round or two just to make an exterior gasket. This is really where you're going to do a lot of your weatherproofing. We're going to put another couple layers of silicone on later. On top of the bracket as well, but make sure you put plenty of silicone under this bracket, help keep that water out. Okay, now we've grabbed our brackets back off of our rack, siliconed under our bracket. We're going to grab our backing plate and bolt the backing plate on underneath with a through bolt from the top. It's also a good idea to put some more silicone on the top of this backing plate where it contacts the roof. And then we're going to do the same process with the rear bracket. Backing bracket in underneath, plenty of silicone. It may also be a good idea to repaint those holes where you just drilled the holes. And then go ahead and put your through bolt in, line up your holes top and bottom, and apply your lock nuts, provided lock nuts. Everything will be lock nuts. After we put our brackets on, we bring the rest of our rack assembly back over, line our side rails up to all 4 of our brackets, and we'll get ready to bolt our side rails back to our brackets. You'll use the 5/16 bolts, which is going to be your 1/2 inch ratchet and socket to bolt your side rail to your roof bracket. We're going to get these close, but not all the way locked down, just to keep everything in place real nice. And the next step I like to do is pull the front crossbar back off of the rack to install the air dam. It's a lot easier to line up the track nuts that you use to hold the air dam down with this rail off of the truck than it is to try to slide all the track nuts into the right position with the air dam between your crossbars, because that fits fairly tight, while kind of overhead at shoulder height or head height, depending on how much or little lift you have on your truck. It's just a lot easier to do it on the bench on a flat surface. You can use your tailgate of your truck, makes it nice and easy. Much easier than trying to do all of that on the truck. So we'll go ahead and uninstall this piece of extruded aluminum that we use to set up the rack, install the air dam, and then put it back on the truck with the rest of our pieces of extruded aluminum. So now that we have our cross member uninstalled, we're going to use T-nuts that we supply, slip inside of the track. I'm going to put the pilot up because we're using short hardware. And you're going to put 5 of these in each track. Once you've got all of these in, you're going to align them to the mounting holes in our Airdam. So now that we installed our wind fairing onto our front crossbar with our track nuts and our 1/4-inch button heads, we're going to reinstall it into our side rails with the 1/4-inch hardware. That'll slip into both sides. You're going to get 2 bolts per crossbar, and that's for every crossbar front to rear on the rack. You'll do 2 bolts per side. That corresponds with the 2 channels that you have on each large face. It's a 2-track extrusion. So once the wind dam's in, the next step is going to be just to put the rest of your crossbars in. Put them in as necessary for whatever you're wanting to carry. If you want to do something like a rooftop tent, we recommend doing as evenly distributed as you possibly can and putting your tent across as many crossbars as you possibly can set it on. That'll distribute the load across your side rails and across your brackets and across your roof as best as you can. The rack is not officially rated, as rating is, a third-party destructive testing process that we just haven't had done yet. The rack has been designed and tested to be used with a large 4-person rooftop tent. It has been camped in many, many nights, but again, we do recommend that you distribute that load of your rooftop tent across as many roof rails as possible. So let's go ahead and get those put in, lock down all of the rest of our bolts, make sure everything's tight and everything's covered in silicone over the top. And then the last step will just be to put your headliner back in and you will be finished with your install.